Hello, and welcome to this video in which I want to explain a bit about the planning levels in supply chain. Because in my masterclass, I'm explaining how to build a production planning solver, network optimization solver, but it's important to understand what is the point of those solvers. Their purpose is to support planning activities. And this is why it's important to talk about that. What are the business processes? What are the planning activities? And if we understand that, we understand better how to configure a solver. So let's start. We have, depending of the horizon, the planning has certain activities. And in this slide, we are showing how in the short horizon, we have detailed scheduling. This is a horizon of 0 to 6 weeks. It can be even longer depending of the company, but I just put here some numbers to give an indication. And this detailed scheduling usually happens on a continuous line, as opposed to planning, which is done in buckets. So this is the main difference between scheduling and planning. In the scheduling, we have a continuous line, we have a Gantt chart, and yeah, we have like the main purpose of this horizon is to sequence, right? So in the planning, we come up with the volumes. So how much of this product am I going to produce? And then we decide to produce, let's say, 10 products and their volumes. And then in the detailed scheduling, the scheduler sequences them and checks if the resource allocation is correct. And sometimes it moves the products from one resource to another. Then we have operation planning. So here we enter this horizon in which we plan in buckets. And here it's, let's say, 7 to 12 weeks, but it can be even more, like to 26 weeks. It depends on the company and what kind of manufacturing process do they have. And this can be in days, weeks, not so much in months. So, and again, depending of the company, it can even be in hours or shifts. And here it's important to decide when, what, and where do we produce first, and then with the production that we have, how best to organize the deliveries. Because sometimes you cannot deliver in time, you can do it earlier, a bit sometimes later. So you need to organize this logistics part of the supply chain. And of course, you need to take into account what is the inventory, do you have capacity to keep inventory and so on. So here we have a lot of detailed constraints. Then we go to tactical planning. Here it's typically in months, sometimes in quarters. It can go between 3 and 24 months. And here we do everything at a more aggregated level. So in the operation planning, we still plan at SKU level, resource level. Whereas in tactical planning, we start to aggregate SKUs, we start to aggregate resources, we aggregate customers also. So here we are just looking at this rough estimation. So one of the processes in the tactical planning, it's called rough cut capacity planning, where you basically, for example, on a plant, you aggregate all the products and you just want to see if you have enough capacity to satisfy the demand for all the products. So it's really, really rough estimations. And then, of course, what are the financial implications of this kind of process? And what are the objectives, financial objectives, and how do we meet them, knowing we have this much demand, this much capacity, and so on. And depending of this, maybe you need to open a new line or hire extra people. So this is how planners look in this horizon. Of course, there are more details, but I'm just giving now a short. And then identify the potential risks. What happens if we have a disruption? What happens if we have a line that it's closed? Can we so here it's a lot of scenarios. You just create a lot of scenarios and try to anticipate all the disruptions that can occur. And finally, we have strategic planning. where this is more long term, where the company looks at what do we want to achieve on long term. For example, do we want to enter a new market? Do I want to open a new plant? And so on. And of course, so it has to do with the corporate strategy. Depends how each corporation has their strategy set up. And then, of course, then you need to translate the strategy into physical aspects. So how does this impact our supply chain network? Do we need to change something, to expand, so as I said, there are a lot of details here, and I will give more details in a future video. But now I just want to give this overview. I started from here, but we can also look at it in the other way, because the idea ideally, the decisions that are taken in the strategic horizon should cascade down through all the horizons up to the detailed scheduling, so everything is aligned. This is very difficult to do, and all the companies want to do that, but many times the decision get lost, new decisions appear, they are not translated correctly, and this makes also configuring solvers very difficult, because all those processes need to work very well to cascade down decisions from one to another, and this should be very clear. And then it's also easy to set up solvers, because the solvers follow what do solvers do? They take decisions. So the solvers can be configured to follow the decisions that are coming through those planning levels. And a quick note here about the execution, because many times people think, oh, execution is what comes before the detailed scheduling. So here is day zero, and then we start to execute this plan. But actually, if you think about it, this execution starts before, because you start execution here. As I said, do I need to open a new line? Do I need to hire more people? For example. So this is still execution, because it's about activities that you perform to achieve the plan. Same in the operational planning. Maybe you talk to the factory, they need to reorganize things there to meet your plan. So this execution horizon, let's say in like this theory, in theory, it's not what happens before the detailed scheduling, no? Because normally say the execution is here, what goes out from the detailed scheduling goes to, for example, let's say the first 2 days of the detailed scheduling are frozen, and then they go into execution. But the execution actually goes in other direction, a bit more in that direction as well. And now I just want to make a little comment about the planning levels and the type of solvers that you can have. As I said at the beginning, the solvers are a tool to support the planning processes. So now it's very important to understand the planning processes in all those planning levels, because each planning level can have several processes. For example, in the tactical planning, let's say the most known one is the S&OP process, but also the S&OP has what inside? Demand planning, inventory management, RCCP, as I said. So it's very important to understand all of those business concepts if you want to configure solvers. And same in the operational planning. Here we have MPS, DRP, MRP, this kind of processes. Sometimes we also get a bit of RCCP type of planning. So it's important to understand which one is where and the type of constraints. And this I'm going to talk about in another video. But just to give here a short example, so in the first 8 lessons of the masterclass, we talk about production optimization. So here where you go the full detail, you plan an SKU, resource, customer. You have a very detailed constraints like lot size at the product level, at product group level. You have campaign optimization, you have shelf life. So here the solvers are quite heavy because of the level of the granularity, but also because of the number of constraints. And then those solvers are quite hard to build and fine tune and so on. And then in the next four lessons of the masterclass, we are talking about network optimization, where here things become a bit more easy because when you go to tactical planning, as I said, you only do rough estimation. So this means that you are aggregating. You are aggregating products, you are aggregating resources, customers, and so on. But you also aggregate bombs and rates, and this is very difficult. So this is the challenge here in this kind of solver, that the constraints are kind of simple, not very not even industry specific many times, or maybe one or two, whereas here in operational plan you get a lot of very specific constraints, very detailed and industry specific. Here you aggregate, so you are just looking at things from above. Uh, but the difficulty is with data. So in these projects, the data is a very big challenge because the data needs to be aggregated. Like aggregating bombs is not straightforward, or rates. But usually companies, they have this kind of data. It's usually they take it from the history, they make some approximations, and as I said, here the precision is not that important. So this is what we are going to talk about in the last four lessons of the masterclass. And in strategic planning, you usually find network design. So it's very similar to network optimization. So the type of constraints is similar, but the objectives are different. And also the level of aggregation, because here we aggregate even more. And for example, here you take decisions. Should I open or not a new plant? And then you have you have your network. You create a base scenario, and then you start to create scenarios with this new decisions you want to take. Do I want to open a new plant or not? And then you compare the baseline with the new scenario. And of course, you create a lot of scenarios and then you decide, is it a good idea or not? Whereas here, when we do network optimization, this is not with a base scenario. Here, you just put your network end to end. That's what's called network optimization. You have your plants, you have your distribution center, you also have your customers. So you have everything in one solver. And then you want to optimize, let's say, based on costs, the transportation costs, production costs, and so on. The production optimization, you only have a part of the network. So you have only your internal network of the company. So you have the plants and the distribution center. And here you optimize where to produce and how to transfer the goods inside your company network such that you meet the demand that is on the distribution center. Whereas here, the demand is on the customer. So you are optimizing how to produce and how to deliver. So how to organize the internal transfers in your company, but also how to ship to the customer. So this is like the major difference between those two type of solvers. And of course, what I'm saying is like sometimes, for example, I did a solver in which in tactical planning, we had network optimization, but it also had campaign optimization, which is typically constraint that appears in the operational planning. So there is a lot of mix and match, or sometimes you do operational planning and you aggregate at the product group, not product. So this can happen. Depends on the industry, planning processes, why do they need a solver for, and so on. But this is like, let's say, the theory, the clean, when everything is clean and clear. But of course, you can change it. So this is what I had to say for today. As I said, I'm preparing other videos to go a bit deeper, like what kind of activities are performed in each planning levels and what kind of constraints, and then connected again with the solvers. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.